Kaitlyn.
Not yet? Oh. Can you hear me now? Okay. My name is Kaitlyn Anderson. For a lot of you that are in the Republican Party, I am Sarah Anderson's sister.
No, you are Kaitlyn.
I am Kaitlyn Anderson. I'm just trying to give you a base.
She's your sister.
My mom. Oh yeah. Everyone thinks I'm older anyway, so. That's my mom, that's my dad, that's my other sister.
So who has the true hair colors? What I want to know.
Oh, nobody anymore. No, Dad does. And that's my grandpa, who I love. I love Grandpa. I love my other family too. I love movies. Anyone that works with me, my friend Nikki, my friend Curtis, can attest that I talk about movies all the time. I watch movies all the time. And TV, but only the seasons because I hate commercials. Basically tonight, I'm going to give you 2 handouts. The first one is what we're going to cover tonight. I'm going to get you up to speed on FCC and MPAA regulations, which the government loves acronyms. So then we're also going to talk about the constitutional problems with these 2 particular offenders. And then we're also going to talk about free market solutions. Once we get to free market solutions, I really want everyone to opine and put in your opinion and give me your 2 cents worth and your ideas, because I really love this to be a tavern type discussion, just no bar fights. Tavern discussions tend to end in bar fights, but tavern politics basically is people have been discussing the issues of the day in bars forever. Men usually fight over women in politics, so it's no surprise they get heated. But I wish everyone would be respectful, no name calling. You can get emotional, you can get passionate, fine. Just, you know, keep it cool, and remember we have an 11-year-old in the room. The Motion Picture Association of America, which is supposedly not a government entity. However, laws have been put into place through co-ops with the government for not allowing minors to see certain movies without a parent, legal guardian, or person over 18 accompanying them, which David can attest to growing up in California. The MPAA is currently run by former Senator Christopher J. Dodd. So this is a quote from their website. The MPAA is run from an independent board of parents with no past affiliation to the movie business, who rate each film as they believe a majority of American parents would rate it, considering relevant themes and content. MPA ratings, also another quote, provide clear, concise information. Movie ratings provide timely, relevant information to parents, and they help protect the freedom and expression of filmmakers and of this dynamic American art form. They also control the content in movie advertising and previews that are on DVDs, commercials, or presented before a movie. Unless they have a red logo instead of a green logo. Red is for restricted audiences only. The FCC is the Federal Communications Commission. This is a branch of the government. They are dedicated to keeping radio broadcasts and television broadcasts free from their 3 keywords: obscenities, profanities, and indecency.
Really? You're doing a great job.
Yeah, I know. The FCC works in conjunction with the FBI to investigate the federal crime of broadcasting such content. You know that stupid FBI warning that you can't skip through? That's them. The regulations are quite lengthy, but the gist of it is this. Obscene broadcasts are prohibited at all times. Obscene material is not protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution and cannot be broadcast at any time. There is a 3-pronged test that's ruled by a Supreme Court mandate, which can be found at the website on your thing, because that's really long and I'm not reading it. Or profanities and indecency. This is a quote from their website. The courts have held that indecent material is protected by the First Amendment and cannot be banned entirely. It may, however, be restricted in order to its broadcast during times of the day when there is a reasonable risk that children may be in the audience. The FCC has defined profanity as including language so grossly offensive to members of the public who actually hear it as to amount to a nuisance. To me, that's any language. You can be annoying no matter what you're saying. The hours that are allowed are 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and if any of you have ever had kids, kids will still be watching TV at that time.
Apparently that's East Coast time and it applies to the rest of the world.
Oh yes, that's true. Satellite radio and cable television are not covered by these regulations. Now we're going to talk specifically about the MPAA because they like to get around their own regulations. Appeals. When the MPAA releases a stronger rating than desired, a movie can be released to either a test group of different MPAA members or the content which was objectionable can be edited out and resubmitted for rating. This leads to the release of so many extended or director's cuts. How many of you own extended or director's cut, Lord of the Rings? Awesome.
It comes on the one that you buy.
Yeah, pretty much. And maybe in Kimball's, they'll do the extended, maybe. Some movies that have rating changes on appeal. Saw, Solaris, Eat, Pray, Love, The King's Speech, Blue Valentine, This Means War, which just came out this year. As Good as It Gets, 300, Sin City. Most movies are appealed to a PG-13 rating from an R rating, but some were NC-17 and negotiated to R. Now, stronger content than the rating dictates. This is the second regulation they like to get around. For some unknown reason, unknown being sarcastic, many big-budget studio-produced movies can get around the dreaded R rating to secure a more marketable PG-13 rating. Some of these include The A-Team, Transformers: The Dark Side of the Moon, or any of the Transformers, frankly. The Breakup, Coyote Ugly, King Arthur, Live Free and Die Hard, in which you can't even say the trademark line from Die Hard. The Tourist, The Social Network. These movies either have stronger sexual content, extreme violence, or profanity, which should be under an R rating, according to their own regulations. Perhaps one of the reasons is this. Advertising to minors. And this is a quote. In a report released in 2000, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission revealed how the movie, music, and video game industries routinely market violent entertainment to young children. The FTC studied 44 films rated restricted and discovered that 80% were targeted to children under 16. Marketing plans included TV commercials run during hours when young viewers were most likely to be watching, or on children's channels such as Cartoon Network, although my grandpa watches Cartoon Network all the time.
Dirty old man.
Marketing, I regret that. One studio's plan for a violent R-rated film stated, our goal was to find the elusive teen target audience, your 14 to 18-year-old dynamic, and make sure that everyone between the ages of 12 and 18 was exposed to the film, and that's from a media awareness document. Here's another one from the Huffington Post. Officially, the MPAA's classification and rating administration's guidelines state a motion picture's single use of one of the harsher sexually derived words, though only as an expletive, initially requires a PG-13 rating. More than one such expletive requires an R rating, as must even one of those words used in a sexual content. But the MPAA's guidelines then add that if 2/3 of the rating board members believe that multiple F words are used in a legitimate context or manner, or are inconspicuous,
Is it legitimate?
What's legitimate?
then the movie could be still rated PG-13.
Is it
Now,
French use of word?
the basic assumption for PG-13 movies is that they are appropriate for anyone over 13. But if you've ever watched a PG-13 movie, you probably know that's not the case. So here's the second problem. No re-rating for PG movies before the creation of PG-13. Now, before July 1st of 1984, there was no PG-13 rating, and we have Steven Spielberg to thank. He did a 1-2 punch of Gremlins and Temple of Doom, and voila, here's a PG-13 rating. This was due to outrage to Steven Spielberg's film Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. However, many movies that were rated PG before this time, Poltergeist. Has anyone seen Poltergeist? Would you let your kids watch that? I wouldn't. However, many movies that were rated PG before this time have the content that would certainly be in a PG-13 rating now. There has never been any re-rating for these films, and ironically, Temple of Doom still has a PG rating. So now we're going to talk about the 3 biggest problems with the MPAA. 3rd biggest, no freedom of information on their staff. None of the names of these parents are released, supposedly to protect them from the interests of major movie companies who want certain ratings. But it does not allow anyone to verify that these employees do not have any connection to the movie industry, nor to the advertisers or producers that carry much of the financial burden and gain of a movie. Sure.
Why not?
Transparency is key in any big corporation to prevent corruption, but they have laws in place that allow them to keep the list of their employees private. 2, movies without an MPAA rating are difficult to market and even more difficult to show in theaters. While it is voluntary to get a movie rated by the MPAA, most theaters will not show them for fear of being sued by patrons who would not be warned about possible objectionable content. And yes, there have been lawsuits about this. There is a yearly fee for membership into the MPAA to have films rated. And you can get your films rated without membership, much like you can be an actor without being part of the Screen Actors Guild. But there is, of course, a fee. Since the MPAA is supposedly not an interest-driven company, why do they constantly cater to large studios? The biggest problem, the MPAA does not allow free flow of information or entertainment. There should be no restrictions on what willing participants can or cannot see. These regulations do not prevent minors from seeing any of the content the government feels is objectionable. Just Googling free movie downloads gives you over 58 million hits, and I just did this last week. This phrase is going to get past most every parental control on the net. So even if you have all those parental controls that you can do now, YouTube has thousands of free, full, unedited movies that are available for view. Illegal downloads are also very viable options for creative minors to get what they want. The government is not our nanny, and it is up to parents to monitor their children's activities and what they view on TV, or in the movie theater, or also what they hear on the radio. You'll see many songs that are edited, and also talk show radio. Advocates for the MPAA and FCC have traded moral safety for freedom. The MPAA was supposedly formed to help people make informed decisions about what they're watching, but by putting laws into effect that change who can view what and restrict content from mainstream view, they are attacking our freedoms as American citizens. And also right now, teens are they're younger and younger when they lose their virginity. Obviously this content is not protecting them from anything that the government wants to protect them from. Now we're going to talk about the FCC, which I call the Federal Censorship Coalition. By restricting the constitutionally protected right of freedom of speech and press, the FCC continually abuses federal resources. You cannot legislate morality, and every government that has tried has failed. Restricting content is censorship. The only valid censorship of ideas is the right of people not to listen, says Tommy Smothers, who knows the Smother Brothers. The evil which results from a censorship, it is impossible to measure it. One of them is, for it is impossible to tell where it ends, says Jeremy Bentham, who's a philosopher. You should be reading his stuff. It's good. When you see what a movie is rated, you can now understand what all those wonderful lawyer-esque terms mean. And you're still telling me it's not a government entity. So, these are the problems. Anyone see any other problems that I didn't mention?
I do have a question. My understanding is the MPAA was started essentially to try and preempt the government from getting involved. And so one way to think about this would be, what if we didn't have the MPAA? Would it be worse? So because then we could basically have Congress doing it.
Well, Congress,
Maybe the free market doing it?
this is what we want. We want the free market doing it. The rating system, I believe, out of touch, completely out of touch. Children are exposed to so much sexual content that by the time they're 13, they're so desensitized to it that it doesn't even make them blink when they see a PG-13 movie that has sexual content in it. So here's what I want. Free market solutions. I mean, I have some ideas, but I don't come here just to preach to you. Okay, some suggestions for free market. Abolish the MPAA. Put in an independent, non-government funded, non-government run
The Mormons in charge.
Transparent system for rating. All of the people that are hired have no link to any of the major movie companies or the government. Go ahead, Nat. What's your question?
Lauren Coombs. So then what would you do about public use of listing material? As in public libraries where children could be in view, what would you do then about that sort of material?
Right now, at the library I work at, Dave works at, we have no restrictions on who can check out what, and honestly, I think that's the way it should be.
That isn't exactly what I mean. I mean like viewing listing material on public computers.
Oh, I see, okay. Well, there was actually a case about this where a man was viewing pornography, I think it was it in Iowa that you were telling me about?
I think.
And here's the difference though, that was a government-run facility. I believe if you're in a government-run facility, you have to be able to watch whatever you want because there's no private sector laws that allow you to restrict content that you can in a free, like if you're not a government entity. We have a public library that's not run by the government, even though we do have some government funding, and so we can restrict content. That's legal.
Okay.
My employer.
My employer.
So,
Well, my question is, just because you can restrict it, would you want to?
I do not believe in restriction. I believe in freedom. I believe that even if I don't agree with the content, I don't like the content, I don't want my kids to see that content, it's my job to make sure they don't see that content. What's your question?
Not really a question, it's more a comment that, yes, I do want to restrict it. Because if I have child pornography on my computer in my home, the police can come in and raid.
You're going to
And
jail.
Well,
Exactly.
child pornography is different because it involves minors.
Doesn't matter. You can't restrict the content, is what you said. So I can be watching child pornography in the library, and those kids walk by.
No.
The library,
Yeah.
the library does filter.
Here they
This
do.
one here.
Here they
Yes,
do.
here they
Here they
do.
do.
When it's a government-run library,
But if there's no content filtering, then you're imposing that other person's on me, whether I'm a kid or an adult.
the problem is
There
that
has to be some
child
restriction.
pornography is illegal and it's illegal to view anyway.
But the
So-
same statement could be made for regular pornography.
Exactly.
So regular pornography, I don't believe should be restricted. I think if you're voluntary, if you're watching it voluntarily, that's your own choice.
You're watching it on something that I pay for, and you're forcing me to look at it.
Yeah, in the library, you can watch anything you want on your laptop. If it's on the internet, I don't believe in censorship. It is extreme, but that's because we've been indoctrinated to think it's extreme. Freedom is not extreme.
Well, it's just like the quote that your freedom's in at the tip of my nose. If you're sitting there on the computer and a child walks by, or even a parent that finds an adult that finds objectionable, then, I mean, an adult can choose to look away.
Right.
But a child just walking their little happy self onto the,
Well, my first question is why isn't the parent with the child?
maybe they are.
They probably see more pornographic content in a Victoria's Secret commercial than they're gonna see on YouTube half the time. I mean, have you ever, did you see the advertising during the Super Bowl for Victoria's
I don't watch the
Secret?
Super Bowl because I censor in my home.
Good for you, you're a parent, you can do that.
The kingdom of Leah. He's got the
Okay,
And then
I just wanted
Josh.
to comment that I work for a government entity. I'm very, very sorry.
It's
That's my
okay.
job.
Nobody's perfect.
I know. But you know what? I spend a lot of time teaching children, and I do love it. I'm not there for the pay because I'll never get rich doing that. But working for the school district that I work for, we have filters. Our students are extremely restricted on what they can access on the internet, and teachers are as well. I cannot tell you how many times I have Googled something to try to get information for my students, and it comes up with this big page that says, my school district has blocked that content. So there is a lot of restrictions in government jobs, at least on the school level.
I guess the first question in this group of liberty-minded folks, why public libraries to begin with? But I will say, as someone who actually did a lot of research in a public library before Congress passed a statute saying if you take government money, you have to put filters on it, a lot of real perverts sat there in public computers which were easily accessible to kids, and they saw all sorts of disgusting stuff that I didn't want to see. And so frankly, I'm thankful that Congress did pass that law saying if you take government money, you're going to have a filter on the computer. Because look, kids are walking through there and seeing this kind of stuff. There's no way you can actually prevent it. Like the little 5-year-old. If they had that kind of stuff in the public libraries here, I would never take my kids to East Library in the summer. We go there for the book readings.
I do understand places like the library and other public places are high risk for children to be able to view content. But the problem is if you don't have that extreme freedom, you have that extreme restriction. When you have that extreme restriction, we're not being constitutional. We have freedom of press, we have freedom of speech, whatever that is. If it's a willing participant watching it, if it's a willing participant who made the film, then you can't restrict it.
It seems to me like that's a really good question about public libraries, but public libraries should be the choice of the community. If the community wants a public library, then the community funds the community library and makes the rules for the community library. If the community library wants to let perverts watch perversion, then they can do that. And if the community says, we're funding this and we say no, then that should be the way it should work.
But I do want people to give me some free market solutions.
All right.
Keep it out of the public. Make it.
The public can pay for it. Based on what you're saying, all you have is something like this. Welcome home, Roman Polanski.
Well, here's the thing with Roman Polanski.
I gave him the mic for that.
That was illegal because it was a minor.
It's only illegal because we're restricting.
So if we remove the government completely, what would you view as a free market solution to having opportunities to view films that aren't loaded with propaganda, you know, that freedom of choice? And that's kind of where I live my life.
There's nothing wrong with propaganda.
I agree. Absolutely.
There's good propaganda.
As long as you understand.
As long as you understand
The basis for any rating system.
I absolutely agree with that.
It doesn't matter who's doing the rating. The basis for it is you know where it's coming from. You know, so if Focus on the Family is doing a rating system, you know that it's based on their standards. Hold it. MPAA is doing the ratings. It should be, you know, their standards.
Kaitlyn, there's nothing wrong with propaganda as long as you understand it is propaganda.
Right, and that's exactly, it's a societal problem. People are trained not to question.
Because they're given this.
That's true. But also, it's a public school vendetta that they're trained not to question authority. And people view the entertainment industry as an authority. It is a humongous industry. It is the biggest industry in the world. Every single country has an entertainment industry. It's one of the very few universal industries in our world.
How many other rating agencies are there that you know of that are in existence that we can access?
That you can access, there are limitless options on
All
the
right, then,
internet.
is that already a free market answer?
It is partially a free market answer, but here's my contention. The MPAA has put in laws as to who can see movies. You cannot bring anyone under the age of 13 into a PG-13
Get you a
movie.
PG-13, buddy.
You can't.
Hey, listen, it's a simple thing. I followed marketing, and that's why I did that. Why do we have public anything? Why do we need a public library? Why do we need public funding of schools? Why do we need public health care? We don't need public anything. The 10th Amendment says we have a right, as we the people, to do everything that the Constitution restricts the federal government from doing.
Really, any language. What does R rating mean? It means restricted. And you can't be over, or you can't be under 17 to see it. Without a guardian. So that's it. So you can see it without a guardian, but the problem is that at 16 you get certain rights as a citizen, and I think viewing movies is one of those rights.
We've drifted from what the problem is, in my opinion. The MPAA is not the problem. The problem is the government requiring their labels to be on all the material.
That's true.
The fact is parents give up their ability to get information and look for other sources is because the source was provided right on the label. So as soon as the government said the label goes on there, parents knew it would be there and they could trust it. The government mandating the MPAA on all the material is what caused the problem. It's not MPAA that caused the problem, it's the government mandates behind it. It's the FBI warning, it's all the other garbage that goes on top of film and on top of TV. When you strip those away, parents become empowered because they have to go find the information. So my opinion is the MPAA is not the problem and the rating system isn't the problem because any other private organization would accomplish the same thing.
That's true.
So it's the government mandates.
I have to give this back to David because it doesn't have a rating on it.
Books are completely unrated. Anyone has access to any printed material at any time.
The other portion that I have to say is that we don't need a rating system, we need a refund policy. So if you can go to a movie and your movie sucks, then you can walk out and say, I want my money back. And that will speak louder to Hollywood than any other rating system.
Propaganda. Films. So, can we agree on 3 basic things? We have a constitutional right to express ourselves through freedom of the press in any way we see fit.
Except unless it's against Muhammad.
Art is an expression of who you are as a person. And the third one is that if censored, it's not constitutional. When you censor things, it's not constitutional. Agree, everyone? Okay. Yes. Propaganda is film.
It seems that there's a little not agreement.
A little not agreement here.
The first one we didn't really agree with. You can say whatever you want to do.
Say that again.
Basically, what I'm saying is, through the freedom of the press, which we are guaranteed in the Constitution, we have the right to express ourselves however we want. As far as advertising to kids go, which we talked about earlier, I think this is very dangerous. Propaganda to kids is dangerous. They're not taught to question things, to wonder what the content of their film really is. Now I mean, this seems like, it's like I watch movies to escape. Do I really have to question the content, what I'm seeing all the time? Yes, you do. It's very important. Everything you do, everything you experience, everything you watch shapes who you are. If you're a TV junkie like I am somehow influenced by all of this TV I'm watching. Absolutely, right?
Absolutely.
So here's the difference. I know how to identify whether what I'm watching is propaganda, what their worldview is, and what the content is trying to show through an art form. Honestly, sometimes it's 2 guys walking to a phone booth, happen to time travel back, but they found out really it was just the drugs they were taking. Bill and Ted. In a galaxy far, far away, where you find out big government is the only government that's viable. Sometimes it's a movie about a dilapidated spaceship where libertarians are the underground movement. Serenity. I don't know if you all don't know that one. How many of you have seen a movie called The Boy in the Striped Pajamas? Amazing film. Makes you cry like a baby. Totally sensationalized. Something like that never would have happened. The historical content in there is crap. Crap. How about Braveheart? How many of you have seen Braveheart, everybody? We all love Mel Gibson. In the 90s. We love Mel Gibson in the 90s, not now.
I think he's a great guy.
How much of that movie was historically accurate? Maybe 10%. But an interesting fact which nobody knows is Robin Hood was stolen from William Wallace's story, and they in fact changed William Wallace's wife's name from Marion to Murrin because they thought that they would get confused with Robin Hood, which is ironic because Robin Hood actually was stolen from William Wallace's story. So, how many of you have seen a movie called Code 46? This movie I wish. No, it's not a drink. It's a movie. It has got Tim Robbins and Samantha Morton, and it is about...
That's probably why I didn't see it.
I know. There are 2 ugly people playing ugly love interests. But they can't be together because the government has mandated they are not genetically compatible. They will not produce a genetically compatible child. So either they have to be sterilized or they have to do it in secret, where the government doesn't know. And if they are caught, they will be mind erased so they don't remember each other. It's all about the government controlling. How many have you seen all those horrible 50s sci-fi movies about if we make machines, they're going to become smarter than us, and then they're going to kill us? Or aliens come, they're always evil. Or you mess with genetic mutation, you get a crazy monster that's going to kill you forever. You know?
Fly.
Yeah. So all of these movies are propaganda. Oftentimes they're based on bad science.
But they're entertaining.
They are entertaining. I am not talking about the entertainment value of these movies. I think the flight is awesome. I love Star Wars. I have the Imperial insignia tattooed on me forever. But it's not full of propaganda. Lucas is a flaming liberal. Have you seen the Goonies kids movie? Chock full of propaganda. How about the recent Horton Hears a Who that attacks homeschooling for no reason at all and just randomly comes up and says homeschooling is bad?
I haven't seen that.
It's not worth your time.
Why not?
Why not? Well, the Laura is coming out. This is a Dr. Seuss movie. Now it's rated PG because they put free mild language, which means hell or damn, in a kids movie. Based on a Dr. Seuss novel. Now, I'm all for artistic license, but really, a Dr. Seuss. Come on. The poor guy.
And so what did they run?
So, basically, what I want to hear from you guys, what do you guys think? What's a movie that really influenced you? Do you think it was the propaganda behind it? Was it the acting? What do you think?
Just shout it out.
Just shout out a movie that influenced you, that you really love. So much Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland. What is the propaganda behind that?
Don't get too fat, don't get too little.
No, the propaganda behind that is pay attention to your school, or you're going to go into a drug-infested world with crazy